So do you want to start off with questions from out here? Who has a question? We'll start off before I go to the written one. That was written in. Kenny.
How do y'all feel about everything that's going on as far as the trying to defund and all? What's your guys' take on all of it and on everything going on pretty much, and how things came about?
So
this situation.
Defunding the police. What's your thoughts on that?
The national discourse that's going on with policing and everything that's happened, it started from a moment in Minneapolis, and what happened in Minneapolis was very difficult for anybody who has a conscience to watch, and that included all of the members of our police department. And it's harder, I believe, for us than it is for everybody else, because not only do we see the actions happening to another human being, but we also know, having this profession, the effect that it's going to have on us and our daily life. And so the national discourse that's going on with defunding the police, personally, I believe it's a catchphrase, very easy for people to reiterate, but it's really talking about deeper undertones, about where should the priorities of a society lie. Should the priorities be on mental health? Should it be on drug rehabilitation? And that's where I like to focus on it. What can I, as one of many police officers in the United States, what can I do in order to make my little part of the community better? And that's how I take it.
Yeah. To piggyback what Brian said, for me, it's very discouraging. Being in this profession for 15 years, I've seen it. It goes in waves, and yes, it's very difficult to see that action or that incident, and that's not a reflection of the majority, to say pretty much 99% of the police force throughout our nation. The defunding, yeah, like it's a catchphrase. However, I think it's going to affect the citizens and victims, because it's something that you want to tarnish the PDs or the police departments and the sheriff's department and state troopers or whatnot. But at the end of the day, the citizens, the victims, are going to be the ones that are going to be seeing the difference of the shortage. And when I see this, I'm human like we all are, and I'm faith-based like all of you are, and I see that incident, and it's just negligent. I don't think his intent, there's no intent behind it. Unfortunately, when people resist, it becomes, the situation becomes dynamic and fluid, it's not static, and the majority of the people think things are going to work out the way they perceive it to be in hindsight after the map. But we deal with dynamic situations that are fluid and we can't control. And like I said, I don't think that gentleman's intent was to do what he did. Unfortunately, it resulted in that, and obviously every community throughout our nation and across the globe had a thing to say and just react the way they reacted. And it's unfortunate to me. It's unfortunate based on what I've seen in my career.
Absolutely.
So now I know you came from Orange County Sheriff's.
Yes.
You've been in this profession for 15 years.
Yes, sir.
And then you come from Colton PD. You know, let's thank God he made it here. From Colton. The biggest part of being part of the police force is in our community is, like I said, is not letting what's happening in our nation lure us into that. We have an awesome police department. Let's keep it that way. Let's not make the sins of other departments or what's going on over there come here. You understand?
Yes.
So let's not prejudge that. I'm going to read a written question here. Do you think that when officers make bad decisions in the heat of the moment, it is due to a lack of training by the department, or is the result of some other underlying problem with that individual?
Bad decision could be a number of things. I know here in the criminal police department, I haven't seen bad decisions being made. But when we look at a bad decision like Minneapolis, the negligence, it's very difficult to answer for that particular officer. I'm not sure what he was dealing with. I know based on the camera what I saw, he was probably worried about the people that were recording him as opposed to rendering aid or getting off. But we all have a conscious decision-making ability. Some people get stressed out, some people do not. Some people can slow things down. So in the heat of the moment, we are humans. So just because I'm wearing this uniform, we're looked at differently. It's happened. I've seen it for 15 years. I'm still human, faith-based, I have a family, but when your potential life is at risk, you do things that in the heat of the moment, you think it's okay. Take that incident with the knee in the back. Maybe he forgot about turning him around, but I have not seen any bad incident or decision-making here in the Corona Police Department, and I'm grateful for that. I'm grateful for the community that I serve, and it's overwhelmed. It's overwhelming positive vibes from what I get. But that's what I see with these bad decisions. It's every officer is different. Every officer has a different level of training and experience, and able to control their stress and non-stress, and how to react or overreact. But at the end of the day, we all train. We're part of one of the best peace officers training standards and trainings in the state of California. And we go through a substantial amount of training, and it preps us for that. But at the end of the day, like I said, it's a dynamic incident, and everyone's going to react differently, from the suspect or the subject in question to the officer. So.
And I see here that what's been added is an de-escalation training. I know your Captain Benalis, he calls it verbal judo. So this de-escalating training is 8 hours that they're now requiring every 2 years. Do you think that's enough? I think it's a great idea. Do you think that 8 hours every 2 years is enough? Should it be more?
Excuse me, not only with the de-escalation, I think Brian can attest to this as well. It's not just the de-escalation training we get. One of our use of or levels of force is verbal communication. So you have to understand, our intent is not to harm anyone. We don't want to use force. We don't want to use any kind of control hold. So we utilize our words of communication.
Paperwork.
Yeah.
You use force is a lot more paperwork, so less paperwork, less
And it's since that question came up, I had last week on Thursday, I had a black deaf guy at the metro station, and he was very uncooperative, very, very uncooperative. And my reporting party was a black supervisor, so they were all there, and he was uncooperative. So I tried numerous times to talk to him, and I told the supervisor, you know what? It's not worth putting hands on him. It's not for disagreement for the bus fare. So Brian would have probably done the same because I know him. He's a great police officer. We all react differently. It's wisdom, understanding, being prudent, looking at the facts that I gathered. No one was hurt. He was creating a disturbance. I tried to de-escalate it with him, and I used my notepad to communicate with him because I don't know how to sign language. But at the end of the day, after 30, 40 minutes, we worked out an agreement with the supervisor, and he got on board. But that's a form of de-escalation, but it's just based on experience. And Brian and I, we don't want to put hands on. That's not our number one objective. But if there's a victim or the subject's going to cause a problem where it's going to jeopardize the safety of you guys, then we're obligated to take action. And that action starts with, asking him, and then if it escalates to putting hands on, again, it then becomes dynamic, and who knows what can come out from that. But we will become negligent if we allow him to continue, and then one of you guys get harmed, or he takes you hostage. So that's just the reality of the truth, that things have happened and we've seen happen. Unless you want to add to that, Brian?
Did you want to add to it? I was going to ask you something. This is from me, what do you have to say, or what is your advice how can a good, law-abiding citizen, why are we so nervous when you pull behind us? I mean, we're not trying to break the law. We're good, law-abiding citizens, but why? And I don't think it's just me because I'm black or a racial issue whatsoever. I just think, what can make us feel better when you get behind us? You're just going somewhere, and we're thinking you're like, he's looking, you know, I'm gonna turn right.
So I will say that my hands also do get sweaty when CHP pulls me over.
He said CHP!
So I'm not exempt to it as well. I think one of the reasons is first of all what we represent. We represent the government as total. Except for going to DMV or maybe going to a city council meeting, we're probably the closest thing that comes to government representation. We enforce the laws, and a lot of us, we wear the same uniforms and we have a lot of gear, and most of us have very mean-looking faces, and so that's intimidating to many people. I can tell you that I'm sorry, first of all, for the way that my face looks. When I come and talk to you, I promise it's not the way I look most of the time. You know, I'm a person just like you guys. I laugh and I like to have a good time. If the more that we can feel at ease in a situation, because unfortunately there is a very small percent of our population that does not want us to be well and that wishes us harm, and we've all police officers have encountered it to some degree or another. And at the end of the day, I would like to go home to my daughters, and Corporal Rodriguez would like to go home to his family. And so we usually start off, start off any kind of interaction with a very high level of alert, because we're trying to make sure that everything is handled safely. And so a lot of it has to do with the people that we talk to putting us at ease. So for example, you'll hear if you ever get pulled over at night, one of the best things to do is to turn on your internal lights and lower down your windows if you have tinted windows. That allows the officer to see what's going on inside, and now he's not afraid of walking into a vehicle that perhaps has individuals that mean to do him harm. Or, you know, natural human interaction, a friendly smile and a greeting. That's enough to sometimes drop your level down. Sometimes I don't like being pulled over by by the police just as much as you don't. But
you got something that gets you out of it sometimes.
Well, that's why I very blatantly brought up CHP. And sometimes that being pulled over, it messes with your day. You know, sometimes people are speeding because they're already late to work, their day is already ruined, and all of a sudden they get pulled over, and that's the straw. And you do that quick snap, and now the officer, it's a normal interaction. If you snap at a person, they're going to want to snap back at you. And so just, we can do a better job at, smiling as well. And the same goes for the community. Those things that make people feel comfortable. Yes, ma'am, do you have a question?
I just want to follow up what you just answered. So I have 4 sons. So when you pull them over and they ask you why you pull them over, why some cops won't tell them this information? Because it could take their alarm down as well, but some won't. So why is that not advised?
Yeah, I thought that was a law. I thought you had to. So her question is, she has 4 sons, and if and when they're pulled over, they'll ask, hey, why did you pull me over? Because, automatically we're thinking, hey, there's no reason for me. Maybe I did, maybe I didn't signal, whatever, but there's no outright reason for you to pull me over. So when that question is asked, some officers answer, some don't. Mm-hmm. What is law? What don't they have to answer why they're pulled over?
So to answer that quick question, is there a law that says you have to know why you got pulled over? The answer is no. In order for me to, if I was to effect an arrest, including a citation, because I have voided you of your civil liberties. I've told you that you're not free to leave because I'm going to issue you a citation. That then in turn would be noted in the citation why you're getting the citation. But there's many different reasons for why a police officer may pull you over or stop you in the street. Unfortunately, the one in our community that's being talked about a lot is well, you match the description that was given in a crime, right? And it sounds very difficult for a normal reasonable person to be like, well, what was the description? And if you guys ever have the opportunity of coming on a ride along with us or just seeing some of the calls, you'll notice that many of the times the description is a male wearing a white shirt walking down the street. And so
Wear a red shirt.
or anything, or it's so vague, and so sometimes you have to go with that. But to answer your question, in a good situation, or for the situation to be peaceful, I would agree with you. I personally do tell individuals why they're being pulled over, because I want you to know that I'm not pulling you over for no reason. And on top of that, I have now solidified that you're being pulled over for a lawful reason. If that individual determines that he would like to have a negative outcome in the situation, it's determined that he was told why he cannot leave, and now he's choosing to personally fight me, which is against the law.
So that makes perfect sense. So now when an officer does not explain why you pulled it over, is it reasonable to say they don't really want peace? I mean, why would that be? In what circumstance would you not tell me why you pulled me over?
Every situation is different. Every situation is different.
Let me ask you like this: Have you ever had a situation to where it was beneficial for you, your safety, not to tell a person why you pulled them over?
It's not that I don't tell them. Is if someone's confrontational from the start, it's not the norm. So therefore, like my partner said, I'm already alerted as to why they're so confrontational. I always tell them after I request the documents that I requested. Once I get those in my hand, I let them know. It's that interaction. It's called respect. You respect. Once you get past it, we'll show you respect. We're all recorded, so there's nothing to hide.
Well, you guys all have
Yeah, we all body-worn cameras. We have audio. So we've been doing this for years. So it's just the interaction. If you show respect, you're going to get respect. If you come at us differently, then our sensors are going to go up. So now there's probably at times where if we pull someone over and it gets so heated or confrontational and they have a warrant or whatnot, we don't have an opportunity to let them know as to why we pulled them over, because it got out of hand. But once I request the documents and I get them, I always let them know why they got pulled over. There's no hidden secret. We have recorders in our units which captures any kind of violation or equipment violation. So at this day and age, I don't think any officer wants to deal with the headache of any kind of harassment or issues. So I've never seen it. It's not worth it. We're all recorded. There's so much transparency. You guys can record us. There's nothing to hide. It's just all respect. You respect. It goes a long way. So for both of us, for the officer and for the individual being pulled over. So
yeah. And just, I'm sorry, one more thing. And a small part of it, or maybe a large part of it, especially back in the day, ma'am, was ego. Was a police officer having the uniform saying, why are you questioning me, right? And that is something that ourselves as a community is realizing that is not a proper way to interact with your citizens.
You know, I'm glad you said that. I'm glad you said because the old school of policing, you know, under the Daryl Gates, I don't know if I just aged myself, but under the Daryl Gates regime in LAPD, it was that type of ego type policing. And I think that's brought you a lot of disrespect. You know, people are catching on. So I'm glad you recognize that and you realize that is not the right way of policing. So I've never had a problem with Corona PD. You know, I've been here since the 80s. So I'll have run-ins, but they've been all legit, you know. Let's leave that there. I apologize. So you guys are good officers. You've been on the force for over a decade. What makes a good officer turn bad? What makes is it the department setting? Does it not happen? And because we're not a small department, but we're not a huge department, you know. So does that factor in? Like, how does that go? How does the department like Corona PD, if they were to turn, how would that happen?
Turn in what way?
And corruption. Rafael Perez, LAPD rep parts. Those types of things.
I think what we're doing now, as far as like the transparency for everyone to see, I think it's established, or when it first started, back in the 60s, 70s, we've been progressing. So I personally haven't been part of any kind of questionable acts, and Corona PD is great. I mean, we are so transparent, we're community oriented like no other. I don't foresee that happening in today's day and age. It can't happen. Yeah. It's just not worth it.
There's a camera everywhere.
Yeah, and we want you to know. I always disclose that. And I've been recording since Orange County, and I think we started here not too long ago. But I've gotten the habit of doing it, and you hear. I mean, like my partner said, you want to do a ride along. You want to hear some fabricated stories. You come on the ride along. And you see some things that your eyes are, I hear things and they're like, that's ridiculous, but luckily I'm reported. Right, so I don't foresee it getting worse. I just feel like as humans, just respect and don't believe everything you see. And once again, going back to what my partner said about being pulled over, I've had some negative encounters with police officers as not only a young adult, as an adolescent, but also as a police officer off duty. And I don't voice those online. I don't need to, because we're all human. We all have a bad day. And I know that their job, now that I'm wiser, I understand that their job is life or death. And I don't take it personal. I don't take it personal. I comply, I show respect. If they disrespect me, then it is what it is. I let it go. But yeah, as far as corruption in our department, there's no way. We're so community oriented. We're here. We love to be here. We volunteer to be here, and we've done multiple things in schools, elementaries, Christmas. I mean, Easter. You name it, we're there. Awesome. So yeah, we're open. If you want to come out and do a ride along, talk, or just see what we encounter.
She wants to happen.
You get a different perspective. You'll get a different perspective, and you'll see that the headlines are not what we see and not what we do. And it's a catchphrase. It's a catchphrase that catches your attention, and then you're already obligated to feel that way, that certain way.
So let me ask you this, and with the way the climate is, and I hate to say it, against police officers today, what can you tell that young person? You have Christian here, you have all these young kids, Aaron, even Henry. You have these young men that are here, Luke. Look at him. You have these young men here. What can you say, and women, what can you say to them? Why should they become a police officer?
People become police officers for many different reasons.
The right reason.
Yeah, the right reasons. For some of us, it's a calling. And for example, my journey to become a police officer was I got recruited from the military by my old agency.
What branch?
From the Marines.
Marines.
Yes.
Wow.
Thank you. The negative outlook that police have right now in the nation is definitely a call from the entire nation as a whole, seeing that there are underlying issues going on in our society and they need to be addressed. And the best way, if you feel strongly about addressing those issues, if you feel that I want to go out there and I want to help my community, one of the best ways to do it is by becoming a police officer. Because you are the person that is called when somebody's having the worst day of their life. I don't think anybody's ever called 911 on their birthday when they're having a good time. You know, it is always the worst day of their life, or a horrible incident, or something negative that they need help with. And many a times, you're the only individual that can be there and have the effect to save somebody's life or to drastically alter their life. I believe that God has a purpose for everybody. And whether it be a grand...
Oh, he's talking our language now, right? Good.
Whether it be a grand scheme or whether he just needed you as his tool in that very moment. And when your job is for 12 hours a day, you are that instrument to affect somebody's life in a positive way. Police officer is the best way to do it. I've saved lives. I've ran into burning houses. It's like an episode of Cops, but in real life. Like, I've done all those things, and you do get a great sense of satisfaction from it. And the negative things that I see on the news do affect me. I mean, it hurts, and my daughters are coming to the age where they start seeing the news, and they have to ask questions about why are people yelling at you, Daddy? And I have to explain to them that it's not everybody, that it's a small minority of individuals that feel strongly against what we represent, which is the government as a whole. But I explain to them that I'm there to help people, and that's the same thing that I would tell anybody who's thinking about what's the best way that I can help a community, is to become a police officer, because you help people every single day.
Very good answer. Very good answer. Why Corona PD? Ooh. Why Corona PD instead of Chino, Riverside?
Well, I'll let you know where I came from. I came from a beautiful city called Watts, California.
Hey, Compton! Come on, brother.
Okay, so, and I grew up in Pomona, so, and I'm a minority, so, the reason why I did it is just like everything else. You want change, do it. Step up and do it. I tell the young kids, for them to do it, make change, show everyone. That's why I'm so passionate about this when they see it, because I come from the gutter. I know how it is. But like my partner said, God has a calling. I'm faith-based in everything I do. I believe, I have discretion. I try to be as prudent as I can. And not only that, the physique that the training that I go through and Brian goes through, we beat up our bodies.
Man, I tell you.
It's just not the uniform, but rather the heat, the sweat, the training for active shooter incidents, the things that we go through to save the majority. Even though we get, talked to, it's unfortunate at times. However, so I did almost 10 years at Orange County Sheriff's Department, and the drive was getting too much, too long for me, and I started looking around nearby agencies, and I came across Corona, and the community interaction was something I've never experienced before. And it wasn't until I started working and interacting with the community members that I was overwhelmed with. I was shocked, because I used to work Santa Ana parts, San Juan, Stanton, west side of Anaheim, and it's not the same at all. But that is why I chose Corona. I'm happy to be here. I'm still here. And if you ever become a police officer and you leave an agency like Brian and I did, it's very difficult to start all over. And I left almost 10 years on the table. So it's very difficult to start all over, but grateful to be here, blessed to be here. And if the young guys, if you want to do it, just make change and show everyone, just prove them wrong, and let them know that where you come from, it's not rainbows and butterflies, and you could overcome any kind of obstacle or any kind of upbringing, and show those that don't believe that we are rational, we are understanding, and we are wise, but you just got to show the respect, and you'll get there somehow, some way. Just so you know, I have friends that are not police officers, and they've been through the system, so they're still my friends. And we have a mutual understanding. Right. So it's just, we're all human. So.
And as believers, we need to walk in love and forgiveness as well, and not judge. So we have mothers in here who says, "No, I don't want my baby to be a police officer." What would you say to those mothers? No, they have a Corona. I'm not talking about LA Watts. I'm talking, because they used to have their companies have their own police department,
Right.
and because of the corruption, they disbanded. Now the sheriffs are there. So I don't know how old you are, but I'm dating myself big time. But it was the Compton Police Department when I was there, and a lot of corruption, and they disbanded. Now the LA sheriffs took over. So not that, but Corona. What would you tell the moms? They have sons who are coming of age. We have one son's going to be joining the Navy in August. Next month. October. Okay, October. Wow. The Navy. And so, what would you say to those parents about their sons and daughters joining the police force? There's some Christian believers that believe you're not supposed to take someone else's life, and the Bible says, thou shalt not murder. Not thou shalt not kill, but thou shalt not murder. That's what that was speaking of. So what do you say to those parents to ease their conscience, ease their mind, not only for them in their acts of duties, but in the danger that it brings?
Well, there's evil everywhere. There's evil. It's inevitable. I have a mom. My mom does not approve of what I do because she cares for me.
Wrong answer.
But at the same time, she's very proud of what I do because at the end of the day, you need a protector. A husband protects his wife, or a mother protects her children. There's evil. I'm sorry.
Right.
We can't be naive and oblivious to the fact that there is. So at the end of the day, you need a protector, and you should be grateful. Mom should be grateful if their daughter or mother they want to protect and serve. It's not an easy job or profession for any reason. It's a lifelong involvement throughout because our profession evolves daily. Not like a doctor, not like an attorney. It evolves nonstop. There's laws that are passed, and we have to mold our new way of doing our job. So, yeah, you just got to be proud. At the end of the day, you do have to protect. And without us protecting, you'll see more, shenanigans or some
Right.
outlandish acts, and that's never going to go away. But we need. If I was every mother, my mom still when I rationalize any kind of incidents a police officer may do, I talk to her. We walk step by step as to why things had occurred. And it goes back to the dynamic fluid incident. We don't want to murder, we don't use murder because that's premeditated. We don't want to take anyone's life.
Exactly.
No one wants to do that.
Right.
Sometimes we're put in a circumstance where, especially right now, the hot topic is mental illness.
Right.
I mean, most of the times, a mother or father calls us because their relative is acting out, and then they come out with what can be construed as a deadly weapon or a gun, and at that point, we're obligated to take action or inaction. So it's one of those things that we're always going to get criticized no matter what. Either we act or don't act. So.
Okay, so you guys are both faith-based. You guys both have your faith in God. How does that assimilate? How do you assimilate your faith in God in your duties as a police officer?
Yeah, even before body cameras became a mainstay for police officers, I always had the feeling from how I was raised that I'm always being watched and I'm always being judged on the actions that I do, how I treat onto others. And not only because the Bible says it, but because that's what a good human being does. He does onto others as he would like to be done to them. And so that's the approach that I've taken to policing. I understand that I may have a very small interaction with a person, but that interaction is probably going to be something that they remember. I mean, it's probably one of everybody's favorite things to talk about at a party is when they got pulled over and whether they had a ticket or not. It's a very small interaction in your life, but it stays with you forever. And so I want to make sure that those interactions are maintained positive, and that when I go home at the end of the day, and when my day of judgment comes, that I'm able to stand proudly and speak about the good that I was able to do.
That's good. That's awesome. That's awesome. Yeah. And I often say, you know, at the end of the day, when I stand before the Lord, I want to hear, "Well done, my good and faithful servant." You know, and that's, as a believer, that should be everyone's goal, right? I know, Kenny, you had a question?
Yeah, just wanted to kind of share an incident. My stepson, he was 20 at the time. He got pulled over up off Ontario and Rimpau. We live
Oh yeah, that was him. I was
I've always taught him, and I've taught my kids in general. He's 21, my daughter's 18. She's a really good student. My older one went through drug rehabilitation and stuff like that. And so he had gotten a car. He got pulled over. He didn't have a license, and I've taught them to comply, regardless if you feel you did something wrong or not. You be respectful, and they'll be respectful back to you. So in return, they found an ounce of weed in his car. They let me deal with it. They gave it to me. They found something on his friend, and they let me drive the car home. You know what I mean? They didn't have to do that, but it's all in complying and being respectful, and you get that respect back. And that's right. You could sit there and be argumentative and say you're not wrong and puff your chest up, and so could he. That's all you're gonna cause. You know what I mean? So like just being respectful, I think, goes a long way. Just like he did that night. He lost his car and he got in trouble, but ultimately it turned out to be a good situation. He remembers that. So now he knows to comply regardless, you know what I mean? He got pulled over for whatever reason. I don't even know what it was, but he was cool, but they were cool back. It was just the way it worked. So just a job well done in that aspect, is what I'm saying.
Thank you.
Excuse me. Chief Johnstone, we have one, maybe two more. Chief Johnstone came out to support our Unity March that was held on July 4th yesterday. What other things are the Corona PD doing to show support in our community? I know you mentioned school, you're in schools. Is it just high schools, or is that?
No, if you work day shift, Brian works day shift, I work the cover watch, so on the weekends, so we don't have that. But when school's in session, we have Adopt a School program. Not just that program. On the weekends when I work weekend days, you go out to churches, you have some assigned churches, or anything that pops up that the community may want, like the parades that we're doing during the COVID-19, or still during the COVID-19. Anything that comes up that we want to do for the community, we'll do it. We hosted our first open house last fall, and we're looking forward to build up on that so you guys can come in and take a look at our department and what we do.
Talk about the open house, because I know you have it out there, and a lot of information is given where the community, they're looking for answers, and if they can come to that open house, they'd actually get those answers and get more familiar with what's going on.
And we're approachable. We can ask questions or answer questions that you may see. And every question, everyone has a different experience. But we're there, and then we'll give you a tour. And we had a great turnout last fall for being our first, and we're looking to build upon that. However, based on what's going on right now, I'm not sure how that's going to turn out.
When is it? Is there one scheduled?
Not right now,
okay,
based on what's going on. But yeah, we have National Night Out, and then we hosted, like I said, our first open house. So stay tuned. So based on social media. But other than that, yeah, we do anything that the community may want, like the Easter egg hunt, any kind of charity events. Our command staff, they typically email us or let us know we got to get things done, and they assign specific officers to attend. So we're always there, always there. So.
Do anybody have any?
First of all, I want to just thank you guys.
Thank
I
you,
would
Ms.
never want to
Commissioner.
live in a place where there's no Christmas. You guys do above and beyond, and I thank you guys for that.
Thank you,
And
sis.
you truly do. As a good cop, I see you guys are very good cops. I appreciate you guys being here. When you see things that's going wrong, or you see one of your partners or someone that's putting a chokehold on someone that maybe be a little too long or too tight, or maybe going above being angry, do you guys tap them to calm down, or do you just let it? Do you just let it just ride out because you know you're not going to hurt them? What do you do when you see someone, another cop, that's maybe doing a little more than they should?
Like the George Floyd case, you have 4 officers on the scene. How hard is it to say, hey, get up, let's put in the car, let's go. Like, how hard is that for you to do to another officer?
Well, first of all, just to cover the legal basis, it is a part of our policy, and it is California law that a peace officer has to intervene when he sees another police officer doing wrong.
That's
And
why
going
all
back,
four of them were charged.
it varies by state, but
Oh,
most
state, okay.
likely, yes.
Okay.
But here in California, you are required to intervene. But just because there's a law doesn't mean that you can't be a good human and see when something wrong is being happening or abuse of power. There's many things that come into that. A lot of it has to do with just experience and being comfortable with who you are as an individual to be able to have that intestinal courage, or that internal courage to be able to tell somebody you're not doing right at the moment, and you do need to take a step back. And we do train for scenarios like that. So I will tell you that one of the biggest things that the Corona Police Department gets praised for is how much training that we do per year compared to other agencies. Part of that training is trying to make a scenario in which you show up and an officer is heated because of a wide range of things that can happen. Just sometimes it's just human tendency. People will start yelling at each other, and you rise up, and you as that calm, refreshed officer have to be able to dissect the situation and say, this isn't going to go well, and you intervene yourself. And again, as Corporal Rodriguez said, our community as police officers changes, sometimes daily, sometimes overnight, like we saw these national incidents that occur. Sometimes it changes overnight, and it's up to us to be able to see in instances that are wrong or perceive things that may be wrong and step in and change them before it turns into a very negative outcome. So to answer your question succinctly, yes, we do intervene, and we're training ourselves more in order to get into those situations to avoid there being something bad that can happen.
Going back to your question, I've never seen anything where was excessive where I had to intervene. I do have an experience with one of my colleagues getting into a verbal confrontation with a homeowner while I was arresting someone else. And in order for us to be diplomatic, because we have to, in hindsight, we could say, I'll do this, X, Y, and Z. That doesn't work that way. So being diplomatic, just intervening and talking to the homeowner and coming with a cool demeanor and approach alleviated that whole incident without me talking to my officer, because, he probably got the best of him. However, there was no hands or no physical, it was just bickering. And after I intervened, the homeowner was like, thank you very much. That's what we do. But here in Corona and Orange County, I've never seen something where it was excessive. But I think as a community, as a nation, we've gotten to the point where we're analyzing, critiquing every incident, such as Minneapolis. There was no excessive force. However, his knee was on his back, which is something that we have an arrest technique, which requires us to put the knee on the back of the ankle. So now we're critiquing that. I think it was just negligent, and they were overwhelmed with what was going on that caused them to forget about sitting them up and rendering aid or calling for aid. So every incident is different, every incident, but we gone from back in the early 90s, yes, to a knee in the back. So it's two different things, but now we're going to another case where we're a chokehold, which is not a chokehold in our, we call it a carotid restraint, which we stopped utilizing that as of now.
Right.
But that's
Oh, that this time you guys just stopped using it?
like my partner said, overnight we banned it. So for now. But it's one of those control holes where it alleviates physical harm on someone as opposed to using other force that's great or deadly. So, but everyone's going to critique it. You can't appease everyone. Everyone wants you to do or resolve the problem in their own way, and it doesn't work that way. I've been doing this for 15 years. It doesn't work that way. There's people that are mentally impaired and they're under the influence of some type of drug and they're impervious to pain. And trust me, anything you use is not going to work. So it's one of those things, unless you experienced it, you'll understand that you can't do X, Y, and Z because it's ineffective. So, but yeah, I've never seen it. I've seen the exchange of communication, but I just did my part, I intervened, and showed some respect, and it was over.
I know it's 4th of July weekend, and you know, we're a little scattered here today, but I thank you guys for coming out. We have 2 great officers from Corona PD. Let's thank them for coming. Thank you guys very, very much. Appreciate you guys. I have to be a prayer list. I have the department to be a prayer list. They have a hedge of protection about them as they go about keeping us safe and enforcing the law. Let's remember as a community, 1 Corinthians 13, love. Let's not keep it accountable stuff are wrong. Stop keeping track. Stop looking to be offended. We need to walk in love. We need to show the traits of love, right? That's our responsibility as believers, right? Believe the best in every person, even when the lights shine up in your rearview mirror. Believe the best, believe the best, you know. And then after they give you a ticket, you can cuss them out. I'm just kidding. But hey, you guys looking for a career in law enforcement? Retired Brea PD right there. Hello, John.
Use that name.
So I just want to encourage you guys just to keep these guys in prayer, believe the best in everyone you come in contact with, especially our police officers that enforce the law and keep us safe. Right?
Right.
So remember, everyone, all of you guys, you're born for a specific purpose that God has for you. Find that purpose, you become unstoppable. Right? Love others, and remember, Jesus is Lord.